Okay. Should there be flexibility in this policy that would allow changes of use to result in a legal agreement that could be invested in the street? So this is really looking at the relationship between tailoring, the tailoring floor space that's provided at the moment, and whether or not changes of use should be accompanied by the provision for improvements to the public realm, improvements to the street generally. Are there any comments on that? No? Okay. In accordance with the existing mixed-use policy in the UDP, should increases in commercial uses be matched by equivalent uplift in residential floor space within Savile Row, or should the priority instead be bespoke tailoring workrooms? So what would the relationship be with the mixed-use policy, which we discussed towards the end of the first session? Does anyone want to comment on that?
I mean, I think this follows on naturally from having a special policy area. Certainly, the estate would be very happy to support the idea that you don't have to put the residential here. You look to put other uses which may be better suited to the street. And I think that if you have a special policy area, you ought to support it in that way. So I think we need a varied policy in respect to mixed policy here.
Okay, thank you. Hugh at the back.
I wasn't going to comment on the specifics of Savile Row. There's others well placed to do that, but it was more a consistency point, which is that if you take this formula in Savile Row, which I'm sure may well have its merits, one needs to think through then how it also applies, as I think you propose, in the West End Special Retail Policy area, where you have the same idea, but the way it's put is slightly different. So all I'd say is there's a kind of consistency point here that may run elsewhere in the UDP that would need to be looked at as well, perhaps.
So you're saying apply it not just within the other special policy areas, but also have a consistent approach to Westborough?
Yes, you floated something similar, but you express it differently in the West End Special Retail Policy area, because again, particularly it came out around the Oxford Street East area about are you going to, instead of the residential, promote public realm or shopping environment or other objectives. So I think looking at the question of priorities and how that interfaces with mixed-use policy may not apply just in Savile Row. That was my
So you're thinking a consistent approach. Just for those who don't know, the West End Special Retail Policy Area is established through the London Plan. We've carried it through in the Core Strategy, and it applies to really Oxford Street, Regent Street, Bond Street, and Soho and Covent Garden. So it's that area there, and we discussed it at the retail workshop earlier. So you're saying consistent approach. And would you also support it for the other special policy areas, a consistent approach?
I think it depends what they are. I mean, getting back to what we talked about earlier about Portland Place, I don't think the same point would apply.
Right.
But all I'm saying is if there is a very specific objective for a special policy area that has indirectly an economic cost, and they usually do, otherwise you wouldn't intervene in the planning system, then that cost may have a consequence for other public policy objectives you're trying to pursue.
Okay, thank you.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you very much.